proud members of the Fan First Sports Network.
Don't know when they're handing out those single digits, but
did you see his iced out necklace?
no, I did not see that.
It's literally Barney the dinosaur.
Shut up. No way.
It is I would say full size. I don't mean like height wise, but it is a full Barney the dinosaur at the end of this giant freaking necklace.
That's amazing.
That is the picture for this cover. That has to be this cover.
I'll
photo.
find it for you.
That is hilarious. No. But that's to me, that was like one of the biggest things is we didn't hear about Ja'Cory Barney at all.
Wasn't a ton of there wasn't a ton of opportunity for the guys that we expect to be starting to have a bunch of storylines come out.
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go! It's time, people, feel it!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! Team is MVP! If we die, we die!
Man, put a child in that. Put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln!
Welcome into another episode of the Big Red Junkies. We apologize for our bit of a hiatus.
Who are you guys again?
Our big red absence.
Big red absence. Jesus. Did you say absence or asses? Yikes.
Should we be reintroduced to each other because we haven't seen each other in so long?
Kidding.
Yeah. Hi, I'm BJ. This is Jed, and this is Matt. We are the Big Red Junkies, as we've already noted. We are excited to be back on here. It's been a little bit. Started some new jobs, moved, all kinds of crazy life things happening that's just kind of taking us away from
Still
it.
haven't been to prison, so I'll get there.
I wasn't even going to bring it up, and you bring it up yourself this time.
I was just getting ahead of it this time.
Jesus. No, we were all in prison. That's what happened. No, I'm just kidding. For as bad as our last show was. No, we're wanting to catch up on some things. There's been a lot, not a lot actually happened, but in the grand scheme of things, what we haven't talked about yet, we haven't had a chance to really address the spring practices that took place, the spring, what do we want to call it? Adventure.
Well, it's called the Husker Games.
Yeah, the Husker Games.
The Husker Lames.
Yeah, that's more along the lines of what it sounded like it actually was. None of us were interested in going, unfortunately. And it didn't sound like a lot of fans were in general. So we're going to touch on that for a hot minute. We're going to touch on some of the things we think are the most important takeaway wise from the spring, because there's been a lot to talk about with very little information.
Yeah. That's been the weird thing where it's like, you can see a spring game and kind of take some news and notes from that and like who played where and with who and all that stuff.
So O-line formations, who matches up against who goes out with the first team.
Like the only thing that happened at the Husker games was like the fourth and fifth stringers just to get film on, a bunch of guys that a lot of people don't even know who exist.
And that was the wildest thing. I thought it was super cool that he decided, we are going to play some game, but we're not going to show you anybody that we like.
Yeah.
Is essentially what it was.
Basically, if you were projected in the 2 deep, you were not playing.
Yeah. And it was an audition for a lot of those guys because up until that point, and there's been changes on that sense, but up until that point, they thought the 105 roster cut down was still happening. The cool thing, the update on that, just in case you haven't heard, I'm sure you have, but it sounds like the judge has basically said the roster limit's not going to happen, or I'm not going to allow this settlement. It's going to end up going to court, which the NCAA cannot afford to go to court on another case like this.
Yeah.
They're going to lose their ass. They haven't won a court case since like 2017 or some shit.
Jesus.
So, they're owing everything.
Lawyers.
Yeah.
They're essentially Purdue right now. Except for I think Purdue had 1 or 2 wins last year.
Yeah.
First half against Nebraska, I'd call a win. But anyway, that's no longer. Now all those guys get to stay, which I think is cool as hell. Sounds like,
just to be fair, not necessarily all. It sounds like it's going to be 120, and you got to gradually over the next couple of years get down to 105.
As of 9 hours ago, they said no roster limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said,
which also tells you how fluid the situation is.
Yeah.
Everybody is, they basically had said there's 3 lawyers that advised the judge on this, and the judge agreed with all 3 lawyers that all 3 recommended, no, you can't kick anybody off a current roster right now. You can't just say that, because right now, like the transfer portal's closed. You had, like, Matt Rhule, I think, went about it the absolute best way you possibly could. Hey, we don't know. do yourself a favor, get as much film out there as possible, let people know about you, go put your name in the portal. We're not going to announce it until after the spring game because they had to be in by midnight on Friday. Mm-hmm. They had 48 hours business days wise
for the paperwork.
So and Monday they could announce it. But a lot of guys jumped in the portal that we never even heard about because why? Well, we found out that week probably not going to be needed.
Yep.
But they did it anyway. They're out there. But it sounds like, I mean, we lost. Who's the Omaha offensive lineman that we
Grant
actually
Seagren.
lost? Yeah, Seagren.
He went to Oklahoma State.
Shitty loss. Maybe him and what's his name, Ferrari. Maybe they were close friends. I'm not sure.
Jalen
Lloyd, yeah. But I'm not really sure on that stuff. I'm just glad to hear that we're not going to have to strip down. I think there are some other teams out there that had already gotten to that number.
Nobody wants to see us strip down.
No, especially not us. No, probably none of them either. But the fact that some of the teams out there have already gotten down to that number, it'll be interesting because it also sounds like there's not going to be a rule in place for anybody that's actually going to be added this offseason. It's not like we have to keep it at the current number either because we haven't announced it yet. It's not officially on the roster, but we're still bringing in a punter that apparently they've already identified.
Yep.
For those of you that didn't catch it, that's another thing that happened this spring is, they basically said, hey, Washington punter that came in that's pro style, that's probably going to, that had a shot to go to the NFL. You go ahead and go on and do that somewhere else because we're switching up our whole scheme and it's all about timing and we're going to go rugby style, which is, I think, cool, whatever. Utilize the rules. We're Patriots fans. So we don't have the button on there anymore, but bringing up Bill Belichick.
By the way, don't say we. You guys.
Yeah. Oh, you're a Titans fan.
Also, Bill's a Tar Heel now. So. Bill and his girlfriend are a Tar Heel now.
Yeah. So. Bill's girlfriend's a Tar Heel. He's just there, I think. I'm not even sure.
She enrolled in classes.
Jesus. Yikes. But that was always his thing is knowing how to utilize the rules to the extent.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're going to do here. Matt Rhule references Bill Belichick all the time. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best thing you can do is that and get your fucking special teams right, which is why Eckler's here.
Absolutely. And the things that he is already implementing. And I loved one of his press conferences where he said to the media, he goes, I think you guys know that I'm kind of a laid back guy. And, everybody just like,
oh, yeah, because they all remember it from before.
Well, it's not like he was super laid back at Tennessee either.
No.
He's out there on the sidelines screaming his ass off.
He's respectfully, and this is in a nice way, he's a psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
I think you take that as a compliment.
Absolutely.
Well, there's all kinds of people that know about him running from Omaha to Lincoln.
Yeah.
And doing like the market to market, but he did it on his own.
Yeah. I didn't know
that sort of a thing.
Fucking psychopath.
But the funniest part is he got in here and he's like, well, now I find out that I've got another coach that is going to be running to the stadium in the morning like I do. Because apparently Dana Holgerson just decided I'm not bringing a car to Lincoln. I'm just going to keep walking to the stadium, and that's what he does every day. So
okay,
there's two psychopaths on our staff when it comes to getting their day started.
I only walk when I'm getting paid. I wouldn't walk to work.
You do that every day.
So. Exactly. Unless I'm walking to a football game, I don't walk unless I'm getting paid.
I'd be pretty fine with walking to work every day if I was getting paid what they're getting paid.
Well, yeah.
It's a big difference.
True. That is very true.
I did think it was super interesting to see that we added a place kicker. Like that was different for me. I didn't know about the John Hull injury until after we had added that kicker.
Yeah. And
then you're going, okay, well, that tells me that either A, they don't think Alvano's going to get healthy or get right mentally. I don't know what that is.
So kind of very quickly going back to the whole roster limitation stuff and people that might not make whatever, if there is a limit or trying to cut down. So yes, the transfer portal is now closed to go into the portal, but if you get cut, you're basically allowed to transfer.
Yeah, free agents.
So even if you get cut in like August, you can technically go to another team. So it's kind of one of those where Eckler wasn't able to see Alvano and John Hull to the best of their abilities.
Also, it looks like Alvano is still out with this groin injury.
Yeah, but so let's bring in somebody else as a just in case, and then we'll figure it out as the season comes on. And if people want to leave, and we can say we cut them,
if your
or
whole
whatever,
depth chart is injured, maybe start looking at other options.
Absolutely. You gotta have options.
Outside of that, I don't think we really learned anything about special teams.
No.
One of the biggest storylines of all of spring that I think, as much as it was talked about, I think it was still under talked about by the media, by podcasts, anything like that. How much do you guys really think that the next step for Dylan Raiola is what our offense and the potential of our offense for 2025 really hinges on?
I mean, I think it's a little cliche and easy to say it's all in the hands of Holgorsen because of the development of the offense, the change of the offense that we're going to have for a guy that is as talented as Raiola. To me, that's the biggest development, is how he can pick up the offense. And we kind of already saw it in the last 4 games of the season where he was able to come in and mold, a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new. And yeah, the first game against, was it USC, was a little shaky, but as you continue,
he said after the game, he's like, it's basically, I'm calling plays, pointing at pictures.
Yes.
Saying, I don't know how to say this word, but can you do this for me?
but you could see as those 4 weeks progressed, it got better and better. Now, granted, we didn't win all of them and all that stuff. And
he got his hooked on phonics going. Yeah.
It got better and better, whether he dumbed it down or was just able to know what to call with the players he had.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing. We've seen it for years here at Nebraska through all the coaching changes of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And he rounded off the peg to fit into the round hole, what Holgorsen did in those last 4 games.
Well, I think that you saw Scott Frost try and do that exact same thing, but apparently he left his whittling knife wherever he had been.
At his poker game at 5 in the morning.
Or his Coke dealer's house, who knows. But
well, that's what he used the knife for, to chop it up.
Coke dealer didn't let him bring a knife.
It did seem very much like that. It seemed very much like, okay, this is what I have. I have this pile of lumber here. This is what I can make. It's not all the lumber that I would want, but I'm going to build this shit. And I think that's why you saw some guys leave this year. I think, whether it was
not many.
Not many, but if you recall, it was a shocker. An earth-shattering shocker when Jalen Lloyd hit the portal. Everybody was like, "What the fuck? We've been waiting for this guy to take off." Yeah, he didn't take another step in his sophomore year, but a lot of guys didn't take another step in their sophomore year that we expect to be big contributors coming in this year.
I'm not going to say that I was shocked. I mean, it was kind of like, I guess I'm kind of numb to the whole, like, somebody's leaving to go, because that's just what it is nowadays.
Yeah, that's fair.
He didn't develop at all. Like, he had 1 game where he had more than 1 catch in his career at Nebraska. So it's not like, yes, you can talk speed, and that's great. I mean, if you can't get open with that speed to catch more than 1 ball a game, I don't know. Good luck. I don't know.
Have fun being on a 6-16 down in Oklahoma State.
Right.
Matt, what were you going to say on that, what he said at the beginning?
Well,
Dylan Raiola.
Going back to Dylan Raiola and what you kind of expect in his development, I expect him to make your standard leap from freshman to sophomore. I expect that Dan Holgorsen will do a good job.
And we kind of talked about that on the last show.
And Rhule has put him in an amazing spot to do a great job. He's got him a better offensive line. He's got him more offensive weapons. Yes, the running back room is a bit shaky, but in general, he'll have more people to pass to.
Yep.
So I'm curious about it more from a standpoint of leadership, though. Like,
I don't think he struggled that much as a leader last year.
I don't think he struggled. I'm not saying he struggled by any stretch of the imagination. I'm saying that it's really, really difficult for a media darling, fan darling, true freshman to come in, especially to a team that has, 6-year guys on it, 7-year guys on it, guys that have been there for a long time and have really grinded it out and suffered. To see those guys like a Bryce Benhart, he was a 5-year starter essentially, and to say that Dylan was just going to come in and because he won the starting job at quarterback, and he's this 5-star guy. Oh well, here's the keys to the kingdom. Like, that's not a natural thing that was going to happen for a true freshman, regardless of the situation. And I don't think he could be more vaunted than he was. It's different this year. He's actually taken and made those steps. You heard both Dana Holgorsen and Rhule talk about the fact that he really seems like he's settled into this leadership role this year. He's doing different things. He was always a guy who was in early, but now he's helping other guys get in early. He's helping other guys. Like, he's pushing dudes instead of just being one of the guys outperforming.
I think the best thing Dylan did was that he didn't walk in here like his shit doesn't stink.
Yeah.
You know, Rhule has said it multiple times where he did kind of take a back seat as far as, you would think the starting quarterback has to be the leader. It's not necessarily the case. I mean, we've talked about it in the past where guys like Ndamukong and Suh, who wasn't this vocal leader.
Yeah.
You don't, just because he's the best player on the team doesn't necessarily mean he has to be a vocal leader. It's all in what you are as an individual, what makes you feel comfortable. Dylan could have easily came in like most other top recruit quarterbacks in the country. You know, we saw one guy leave Tennessee and go to UCLA that walked into Tennessee like his shit didn't stink because he was making millions of dollars every year from the very beginning as soon as he walked in there. Dylan didn't walk in like his shit doesn't stink. He kind of stood in the background. Like I said, some of the coaches have already mentioned that Dylan did, and he's able to step up now. It's almost like he gained the respect of that locker room.
Absolutely.
By not coming in like he's king shit and I'm Mr. 5-star and I'm the, all that stuff. My dad's name is on the building and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Gaining that respect from the old guys like you were talking about, I think was huge for the entire team.
Yeah.
For me, I was never really concerned about that, though.
I wasn't either.
It's exactly what you said. He came in last year and he did the things he needed to do, like to become a good leader.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed that was still a thing that was happening. To me, I want to see what kind of development he's made in game decision making. I want to see what kind of development he's made, faster paced decision making, faster, analyzing situations better.
Yep.
Not making dumb rookie mistakes, stuff like that. That's where I want to see
running
the biggest.
the ball when he's wide open.
That's where I want to see the biggest development.
Well,
yeah.
I think that what you just said, Jed, is really truly where the whole body composition talk came from. Is his ability to be a little more mobile and want to.
Well, he also had a bad ankle last year, which kind of hindered him from wanting to run.
And then a bad back for like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Because of a shitty run.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that was a big part of the body side of things. But again, going back to finishing the thought on the leadership side of things, that's just like, to me, that's more of now you have the offensive tools. We think we have the offensive guy that's going to call the plays the correct way. He has all that stuff. We needed the leadership to be coming from the right spot, because it's really difficult to have the other part that we didn't touch on is Heinrich Harburg was an emotional leader and an upperclassman leader on this team who essentially got demoted because a true freshman came in and took his spot. So you also had that lurking in the background. Now those two dudes are like great friends. You hear about, last year Raiola came in and he took those 5 dudes down to Texas to work out with Jeff Christensen. He's doing the same thing again this year. And it's not just, I think last year it was 4 wide receivers and a tight end, which was Finoni. This year it's 4 wide receivers and Heinrich Harburg's on that list.
And a tight end.
Yeah, and a tight end. But like, as much praise and lauding as Dan Holgerson has done for Lindenmeyer, you would think that Lindenmeyer would be the number 1 tight end, TE1 that would be going down with him. I mean, I realize Dylan and Harburg are very good friends, but at the same time, that's not a friend's move. I think you're the tool that I need. I'm picking my top 5 guys to take down there and get the most reps in with.
Well, and I'm only saying this so that other people don't read into too much of it. It could just be a scheduling thing too. Maybe Lindenmeyer wasn't available, like whatever. But
hey, Heinrich, you can come with. Lindenmeyer couldn't make it.
But I'm just maybe Lindenmeyer and Heinrich Harburg were going to go, and who knows? But still, the fact that he's bringing somebody else with him is a big deal. That
I think it's huge, and I think it now means way more than just, oh, hey, I just got a bag. Hey, why don't you follow me down to Texas and work out with me for a little while when I'm not even the starting quarterback?
Yeah.
That was a little bit weird to do. It was a bit of a flex to do when you're not the starter yet. Different move this year.
Yeah.
I just think that the leadership is going to be play a bigger role in the development of our offense as a whole this year than it did before.
I agree.
Shifting over to the defensive side of things, I don't think there was enough made this spring because we heard, we're keeping on Butler. Okay, cool. He's moving from the DBs up to the head coordinator guy. oh, we're going to keep the 3-3-5. I want to keep playing this style of defense. I think it's been made pretty clear when you hear Rhule talk about it, when you hear Butler talk about it, when you hear any of the assistants talk about the style that they're playing, they're going to be more aggressive this year. They're more
athletic.
You're going to see a lot more speed on the field, which is funny because if you remember back to year one, Tony White was the catchphrase he tried to make happen the first couple weeks was Husker speed. We made it a button on the fucking board, if you remember. Husker speed.
I actually forgot about that until you just now said that. I remember. I could hear it in my ear.
So I think what we thought we might be getting with Tony White in year one sounds like it almost might be more of what we're getting this year.
I believe it.
I think the aggressiveness is going to be the huge thing. And it also seems like some of the guys that we've kept around, especially like in the front seven style, they're really taking to Braden.
Yeah.
Really taking to Braden. He sounds like a super, almost like an Eckler for the D line.
Well, and I would even say not just to Braden was on the defensive line, but, with the transition that the defensive backs had to go through last year with losing Evan Cooper in like late July or whenever that was, early July, and then needing to make the transition with Butler coming in very quickly, right before the season started. There was, I don't want to say turmoil as far as like people were angry at Butler, but there were players that were angry at the situation.
Yeah.
They loved Evan Cooper.
You heard players that left to go follow him down to Florida State because they were pissed about the way we've heard reports that Terrence Knighton left because of the way Evan Cooper got done.
Yeah. And again, that's nothing about Butler. It's just about the situation. And to be able to now have a full offseason with a new defensive backs coach, Butler still in the room and everything else, I think that transition with Addison Williams as a former defensive coordinator at Central Florida, like he was, it's kind of one of those, I love having former head coaches as coordinators, like with Holgerson. I also love having former defensive coordinators as assistant coaches as well.
And we have 3.
Yeah. So
we have 3, one with NFL experience.
Yeah. So it's, I love the fact that a guy like Addison Williams is there to be able to coach those 4 seniors that we have in the backfield and on the defense and all of the, 87 young defensive backs that we have as well.
Yeah. It's pretty clear we got a much easier to understand and digest picture of the fact that it really is truly Butler's show, and Snow is there to help, and he's really working with, it sounds like, the outside D lineman, if I'm not mistaken. I don't understand what the big hoopla is about. Well, how is this gonna affect the play calling? It's pretty clear. This is Butler's defense. This is Butler's show. I don't know why we keep hearing stuff about it going back to, they've got a game plan together and these things like that. It's kind of like the co-offensive coordinator tab that got put on, what's his name? Quarterback's coach.
Oh, Jesus, brain fart. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. He got co-offensive coordinator, and he didn't help Marcus Satterfield not shit his pants at all last year. Yeah. So, might be just a title thing. Who knows? But
I don't know why I'm brain farting on his name.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy.
Nobody's thought about him for a long time.
You're not the brain farter, man.
I usually am. I'm old.
While you think about that, I do want to shift gears back to the other side of the ball.
Glenn Thomas, Jesus.
Glenn Thomas, there we go. Because I think one of the most lauded groups of the entire spring was the offensive line.
Yeah.
Which was kind of crazy because we had 2 brand new guys coming in. Was really funny because a lot of people, at least until we started hearing positive reports on one and not so positive reports on the other, everybody thought Rocco Spindler coming in was this giant ad. This guy's an NFL talent. He just played in the national championship. It's a huge deal. We were super excited about it. I don't care what anybody says. Still super exciting.
Yeah.
But he was going to lose his job in Notre Dame.
Cool.
And now
He's
that's
still a great
the storyline. I agree. But now that's the storyline on him. But the big storyline is Pritchett apparently is just absolutely wrecking shop.
Love it.
And the dude is like the story, because we weren't there, we didn't hear it. I've seen some of the clips, heard multiple people talk about now how they were doing the tractor pull and his harness broke, and instead of stopping because he's getting choked, he literally holds it, readjusts the harness, and still ends up winning the tractor pull.
I haven't seen any of that. I have no idea.
The big thing that was taken out, I guess it was him going up against Riley Van Poppel. And I thought it was interesting. Steve Sipple made the comment. He said he stayed very centered and he kept his, like you could tell he's had elite training and focus on how to keep your feet set, how to keep your body, structurally moving. Whereas Riley Van Poppel looked like the word he used was sprawling. He was getting out there. He was kind of starting to crab walk and all those different things because he was running low on energy and all that. And so, I mean, coming out of spring, there were mock drafts for 2026 coming out with Pritchett in like the later first round, which I think is crazy to think of a Nebraska offensive lineman preseason projected, first round. Now, hopefully he doesn't get plantar fasciitis and have a problem like Tommy Hill, because that's where Tommy Hill is projected too.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we like the other three positions. Yeah, Evans, we haven't heard a ton about, but I think that one's like just clear cut. We heard at the beginning of spring, he's our guy.
It's kind of more we don't want to hear a ton about him.
Don't want to hear about it.
If you do, it's probably negative news.
Because even last year, did you hear a lot about him? He was probably our most consistent offensive lineman.
You look at the numbers, he was. He absolutely was.
When it comes to linemen in general, no news is generally good news.
Absolutely. 100%. They're like refs. Like, if you don't hear about them the entire game.
It was a good game.
Yeah.
Good game.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you guys make anything of the news towards the end or the words that were coming out about Litovsky potentially challenging for the right tackle position?
Well, that all depends on whether or not Corcoran, Prohaska, and how Gunnar Gatula come back from their injuries.
Yeah.
I'm okay with some extra competition going on there.
I think we've got bodies. Like, these dudes are really pushing.
That's the thing. I mean, Litovsky's probably going to stay at guard, but he can play tackle depending on, like I said, those three guys.
He's big enough.
Health. Yeah.
Well,
he kind of bounces around back and forth. He played mostly guard for us last year, but he can play tackle if needed.
But he's primarily played at right guard, which is where Rocco Spindler plays.
Yeah.
So he's moving positions one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
If he's got the body size for it to play at tackle, and he's got the brains out there, let's go.
Well, I mean, you got Elijah Pritchard, who played right tackle at Alabama. He's going to be playing left tackle for us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of the same
There's
concept as
movement.
far as, yeah. But, I mean, when you have guys like Litovsky, Evans, Pritchett, and Spindler combined, four guys that are probably going to start on your offensive line that have 3,000 snaps from last year combined. Like,
we talked about how much experience we had coming back last year.
Well, and then again,
wasn't all necessarily great experience.
And then the fifth guy is going to be probably one of the three: Gatula, Corcoran, and Prohaska. Gatula played most of last year. Corcoran has played forever, and Prohaska started like the last 5 games 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
he started a few games as true freshman.
There's experience there, even in the last spot of the 5 spots on the offensive line. So,
and Prohaska was the guy we were most excited about 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's I like the potential. I guess I phrase it that way.
It also lets you kind of get a look into why Segrin might have left.
Yeah. I agree.
The only thing left, really, storyline wise, to talk about is the utilities and the tools that Mr. Dylan Raiola is going to have to play with.
Mm-hmm.
That wide receiver room is completely revamped, and I think the biggest storyline of spring for me was the complete lack of storyline when it came to Ja'Cory Barney.
Yeah.
A guy who, by the way, today was posing in a number 2 jersey. Don't know when they're handing out those single digits, but...
Did you see his iced out necklace?
No, I did not see that.
It's literally Barney the dinosaur.
Shut up. No way.
It is I would say full size. I don't mean like height wise, but it is a full Barney the dinosaur at the end of this giant freaking necklace.
That's amazing.
That is the picture for this cover. That has to be this cover.
I'll
photo.
find it for you.
That is hilarious. No. But that's to me, that was like one of the biggest things is we didn't hear about Ja'Cory Barney at all.
Wasn't a ton of there wasn't a ton of opportunity for the guys that we expect to be starting to have a bunch of storylines come out.
That's fair.
Well, and we talked about you said this at the very beginning. there's a spring that did not have a spring game, and not a lot of information came out.
Yeah.
The whole spring.
So if someone's going to talk, they're going to talk about the new factors that are coming in, and it's another one of those where I haven't heard anything about him, which it makes me feel like he's doing his job.
Yep.
Yeah. The one thing I think you could take away from the Husker games, if you will, we've got some serious speed on that field.
Yeah.
And he leads that charge still.
Yeah.
Was he the one that won the?
He won the 40-yard dash. Yeah.
But okay.
But he was considerably faster than just about anybody else. But apparently, like Heinrich Harburg on it was either 60 or 80-yard dash was topping out still over 22, and he's put on like 15 or 20 pounds.
That's a good sign.
That's
a good sign.
Also might be why he's headed to Dallas with Dylan. You got a tight end that can move like that weighs in at 245 plus. That's it.
I'm still curious to see how his hands look, but
yeah,
we'll get there.
Can't be much worse than Faboni hands, and he got drafted.
It's true.
Still.
Outside of that, I don't have too much.
Faboni would have been great at the Husker Lanes.
Too much coming out of this. The only thing we didn't really touch on at all was the fact that we passed on an Omaha native running back that was the most coveted for the second portion of the portal. We let him go to Miami, and as Rhule explained it on the Husker Online show, it was basically a dollars and cents thing. They didn't want to pay the money that he was being offered from other places, and they let him walk. Do you guys have any feelings about that?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of one of those, how much do you need basically, what do you view on the running back room? Yeah, we have the one stud, and then we have three guys that I think they have 8 combined carries from last year.
Well, like 3 of them are true freshmen.
Well, but 3 of the guys that actually played last year that are still on the roster, they have one had 6, the other one had 1 apiece, the other 2 had 1 apiece.
Sure.
So, the depth of them would have been probably better, but
the money game of college is new and not going anywhere.
Yeah.
In the same way that you can't be mad that your NFL team doesn't have all of the best players who want to get paid top dollar contracts.
Yeah, but there's no salary cap.
It doesn't mean the team has the money to go out and throw it around.
Oh, man.
Wow. I need one.
So my thing on it was this. Rhule said it was a dollars and cents thing. We've assessed looking at our roster, we've assessed it. We've spread out the money the best way that we possibly can. My only question coming away from what he said on it was the market just demanding more than what you're currently paying your projected number 1 guy that you already had a risk of walking out the door once, and now you're going to pay more for a guy that you're telling him is coming in at the number 2 spot? I don't think you can do that.
No. We talked about it in text message kind of when the portal stuff was opening, and we're all kind of like, I don't see us adding anybody outside of like the big time defensive lineman or offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to put down Marty Brown, but
don't put down Marty Brown.
But at the same time, he wasn't like the biggest of the big time guys. So the one thing we've already said this a couple of times, the whole spring, we didn't really get a whole lot of information. But the one bit of information that I'm very confident that we did hear about is that they are confident in this running back room.
Yeah.
Lack of stats behind Emmett Johnson be damned. They are very bullish on who they have in that running back room.
Yeah.
So I said it in the text message that I'd be very surprised if we added that North Dakota State kid, just because of how they talked about that running back room.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Husker football history.